stood at the border, watched people crawl over the fence with a ladder, and some of them try to turn themselves into us, because what they do is they turn themselves in, they go to a receiving center where they're then processed, and then given a airfare or bus fare wherever they want to go, and a free motel room for as long as they need it. There's an attorney on the radio today saying there's probably going to be a lawsuit against the parents. Well, and the school. He didn't say that, but and the school district.
Yes.
Because if you can get them in, you now have deep pockets.
I think that's something more you brought up about how your recruiting is hard. And I think more people need to realize that we definitely need more law enforcement officers out there. Hey, folks, we have a really cool conversation for you today. I get to sit down with Donny Youngblood, who's the sheriff of Kern County. He's been the sheriff for about 18 years, but he's been with the sheriff's department for 48 years, and he will continue that for a few more years. You know, we had some great conversations about the Prop 47, the Second Amendment. We talked about gun right ownership and the responsibility of owning your own firearms and what that really entails. But also we had a little fun conversation about Merle Haggard. He even brought Pat McAfee into the conversation a little bit. So I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, please put it in the comments and give us a 5-star review. So with that, let's get started.
Every citizen armed ensures that every American patriot is prepped with knowledge, perspective, and firepower.
He counted on America to be passive. He counted wrong.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
All right, thank you, and welcome to the 5th episode of Every Citizen Armed. And we're going to be joined today by Donny Youngblood, who is the longest tenured sheriff in Kern County history, from my understanding, and the sheriff of the 3rd largest county in the state of California. So that's a pretty impressive feat. So, Donny, I really appreciate you coming today.
My pleasure.
You've been in public service for a long time. I think you've done some pretty amazing stuff. So I would really, if you don't mind, go through, talk a little bit about how you got into this.
I certainly have been in uniform my entire life, adult life. When I was in high school, I wasn't the best student, and got to a point where I wasn't going to graduate from high school. My dad drove me to the military recruiters and said, "Which one do you want to join?" And he had a deal with the principal that if I joined the military in a deferred program, they could probably graduate me. And okay. I said, I'm not joining the military. I live with you. He goes, not anymore.
Oh, well.
So I picked the Army and went in and signed, and 90 days later I graduated from high school, and 2 weeks I was off to the Army boot camp. And that probably was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I was going down, we all live in forks of the road. And some forks of the road you take are bad, some are not returnable.
Yes, absolutely.
You go down that wrong fork and your life changes forever. I was fortunate my dad was very strong-willed and went in the military, spent 3 years in the Army. The last year and a half was a drill sergeant in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I spent 14 months in South Vietnam, came back, was discharged from the Army, and I still wasn't 21 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I started looking for jobs. I landed one at the welfare department in the county, and in about 2 weeks I realized I can't do this. This is not what I want to do with my life. And I saw one for the sheriff's office. I had no intention of ever being a police officer. And it paid $3.96 an hour. Minimum wage was $1.65. I thought to myself, if I could make $4 an hour, I'd be somebody.
You're rolling in high cotton right there.
Tall cotton for sure. And I landed that job, and there hasn't been a day that's gone by that I haven't looked forward to going to work in those 48 years that I've been there. I've always looked forward to going to work, look forward to coming to work this morning, and here we are.
Well, like I said, I really appreciate it. I know you've got a lot going on. One of the big things, and when we started this podcast, our whole idea of this was we know there's a lot of folks out here, and Kern County has been great about, with the CCWs, but also the training and so forth. And we wanted responsible gun ownership, which I think is something I've heard you talk about in the past. And you've been a great supporter of the Second Amendment. What brought you to that point to where you really are a big supporter?
Well, probably coming out of the military and then going into the sheriff's office, you're carrying a gun all the time. And you know the value of a gun, but you also realize that a gun in the hands of the wrong people can be bad. a gun in the hands of someone that doesn't know what they're doing with it or doesn't know the law can be bad. People don't understand when they get their CCW, there's training involved. And part of that training, it will tell you, you don't bluff people with your gun, because if you get into a confrontation and you pull out your gun to bluff someone, you're now handicapped because you got a gun in your hand. And you may not be capable of using it because of the law, and you're fighting with one hand. So pulling a gun is a very serious thing. It's taking someone's life is life altering, and that's not the reason we give you a CCW. But if it is to protect yourself and your family and your family members, that's why we arm our citizens. And I believe that everyone that is eligible should go through the training, should learn how to handle firearms, should learn the law, and should carry concealed weapons.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of where we went with this. We really wanted to start talking to folks about, you could go get your CCW, and the Supreme Court has definitely made it a little easier on some things.
So far, we're going the right direction. But the CCW is you have to be responsible.
Yeah.
And if you're responsible, a well-armed citizen in our county is important. And I think we have somewhere around 15,000 CCW permits in Kern County, which is a lot compared to the other counties. But I can tell you that rarely do I have a problem with someone with a CCW.
Yeah.
My problem is people with guns that don't have a CCW. And occasionally you'll have someone with a CCW that'll get arrested for a DUI or a misdemeanor of trespassing. Whatever it is, it's lost to that CCW for at least 1 year, then you can reapply. Yeah, so if you get arrested on a DUI, you might as well just call me up, turn it in, because you violated the law. And you have to learn that there's a responsibility involved in carrying a firearm.
Yeah.
And DUI, alcohol, and guns just don't mix.
No, I think that is one of the things we've talked about a lot.
That's the common crime.
I would imagine. And I bet you come across that more often than you would like, for sure.
It's not that often. I probably haven't had one in 5 years.
Oh, that's good.
Rarely do we have that issue, but occasionally it pops up, and sometimes it's a really close friend, strong supporter, and they'll call me, "What can I do?" And I say, "Well, you can mail in your CCW." I don't make exceptions. This isn't political. If I lose your political support, so be it. That's the way it goes. But it's the same for everyone.
I think that speaks really to the fact of why you've been able to be the sheriff. I think for 18 years now. Right? I think you've been
18 years.
Elected in 2006, and we've seen Kern County change demographically a lot.
We went from 70% red to about 55% red.
But you still maintained the support, and I think that speaks really well to your ability to adjust, but at the same time, stick to your values.
Well, you have to remember the role of sheriff is theoretically non-political, apolitical.
Right.
You're not red, you're not blue, you're not green, purple. We all are. I'm a right-wing Republican, and I'm proud of that. But I represent everyone in our county, including people who are in the country illegally that are in our county. If they're a victim of a crime, I'm their sheriff as well.
Sure.
Whether I like it or not. But that's the law. And sometimes that's difficult, and you have to take a step back and look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, remember what your role is. You're not a Republican sheriff, because when I run for sheriff, or in California when you run for sheriff, it's not listed on there what you're Republican or Democrat.
Right.
Other states, they have different rules, and they do it differently. But California is a nonpartisan sheriff and district attorney.
I think it'd be the best way to do it. I mean, it
is easiest for me, I'll be honest with you, because your core values are your core values, and we get those from our environment growing up and living. Mine came from joining the military and not doing so well in school. All that's money in the bank at the end of the day.
Yeah.
When you finally become a mature individual and you realize that you got a couple choices to take, and it's going to change your life forever, whichever way you go. And my change was joining the military. It absolutely was life-changing for me. I was an 18-year-old kid, just turned 18, and thought I knew everything, and I knew absolutely nothing. As time goes by, my dad becomes smarter.
Yeah, it's amazing how I went from – the more I learned from 18 to 25, I realized how much little I knew when I was 17, 18, and 19. And, yeah, it definitely adults get smarter as we get older. So
For
that's
sure.
– you brought up the fact you are the sheriff for even the illegal aliens that are in the county. And that it is one of my notes to ask about. So if we'll go ahead and go to that, if that's okay.
Certainly.
With that, we've seen what's happening at the border.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we know that's got to make it harder on all of our law enforcement
I've
officers.
seen it personally. I've been there twice.
Yeah, I know.
And
That's
because
impressive.
I didn't want to spout my mouth off without having seen it firsthand. First time I went down was with President Trump when he was the president. The second time, and several sheriffs. The second time was with a group of sheriffs, and we went to a 3-day training class where we toured the border. And it's exactly what we thought it was. It's a wide open border. We stood at the border, watched people crawl over the fence with a ladder, and some of them try to turn themselves into us, because what they do is they turn themselves in, they go to a receiving center where they're then processed, and then given a airfare or bus fare wherever they want to go, and a free motel room for as long as they need it. And that's what our open border is. And our administration is directly responsible for that southern border. It's a federal issue,
Right.
and we've ignored it for the last 3.5 years.
I don't see how, when you brought they put them on an airplane. I think of how hard it is for me to get on an airplane.
Yeah.
But yet, these folks, they don't have anything.
Well,
and
they're
they
coming
can toss
across
them
the
right
border
on.
with, some of them have fake IDs,
Right.
and there's no way we know whether it's real or not. They're not really. They say they're vetted, but they're not. I asked if DNA was taken from them, and Border Patrol said yes, but were shaking their head no when they said it because they're trying to keep their jobs. So,
Well, sure.
So we have people in our country that's not the migrant farm workers that we're concerned with. No. We have terrorists that have come across our southern border, and we don't know who they are or where they are, and that's very problematic. And we're going to pay a price for that down the road.
Yeah, that one probably scares me more than anything else when
Absolutely.
I look at that. It's the amount of, like you said, it's not the farm workers. I saw a report that said like 30 or 35,000 Chinese military-age men coming across that we're catching.
There's a direct flight from Beijing to Tijuana every day.
Really?
Now, how many people in Beijing are going to Tijuana for vacation?
I can't imagine anybody.
No, they're not. So that's a clue. And our current administration, they know this is happening.
Right.
They're aware of it. Every single one of them can become a registered voter, and that's what this really is all about, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I feel the same way. I think that's exactly what's happening. We're seeing that in some states where they say
There's a bill on the governor's desk today to give people in the country illegally a $150,000 down payment on a house. That doesn't say a thing about our disabled veterans that need houses.
Exactly.
I don't know whether the governor's going to sign it, but I suspect he will. Although this governor right now is running toward the middle, it's all a political agenda.
Well, he's looking at 28.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's running toward the middle right now, but he's a far left extremist, and it is what it is.
Yeah, he's shown that for many, many years, and I really hope the rest of the country really sees what he's
Well, he's also got
done.
a bill that will require our universities to hire illegal aliens.
I saw that one.
That makes no logical sense. We should be fostering our citizens for jobs. We should be encouraging people to want to work, not stay home and collect a check and be a part of socialism running toward communism, because that's what we're doing.
Well, it's a step. Yeah, exactly. That just takes you, that's the next progression.
Yeah.
You go from here to there. I watched that when my girls went to Fresno State. Both my daughters graduated from there. And I think at one point, I don't know if it was the youngest or the oldest, the president of their student union was actually an illegal immigrant. He came over here he's here illegally, yet he's the president of this student union for the Fresno State, and that student body. That just
We're all
amazed me.
for immigration.
Absolutely.
We're just not for illegal immigration.
No.
And that includes the people who have migrated and become citizens. They're more offended than anybody because they went through the process.
Yeah.
And there is a process to become citizens. If you've watched the lady that's run for president today in her commercial, the border wall is pictured 3 separate times in her commercial.
It's amazing how she's changed.
If the border wall didn't work, and why is she using that?
Yeah, I love how she has changed her stance on a few things all of a sudden. Now, let's
She's
let's
a
jump into
chameleon,
that.
in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think it's, whatever it takes to get elected. And then we know then she'll go
That's
back
what's
to
wrong
it.
with our country.
Yeah. Well, I've never understood not standing behind your values. I feel the same way
Nothing
I
wrong
did.
with being wrong. There's
No.
but our core values are what we truly believe in, not what we use to get elected.
Right. No, gosh, if we could I would love for a politician one day just to admit they were wrong. I've always said, I've never met a politician that says they're wrong. I've never heard one ever say it. So how are they right so many times?
Yeah, they're just pretty smart people.
They must be. That's I always think is you could, whatever I tell folks that whatever we're talking or mentoring or whatever, you always admit your mistake.
Yes.
And accept mistakes, accept the blame and share the fame. That whole aspect of it, I've always felt that same way. I wish our politicians could do the same thing.
There's a massive movement to disarm our citizens. If you live in socialism and you're disarmed, you'll do what you're told to do when you're told to do it, and I don't think that's what we want. We have people in South America who are running away from socialism, trying to get in the United States to join a socialism country. It makes absolutely no sense. We have the Second Amendment gives us a right to bear arms. You can't take that away. I've heard the argument that the weapons of war, there are no weapons of war on the streets that are legal. We have no weapons of war.
Right.
That's a term that they love to use. The gun rights or the gun control advocates they're using weapons of war. An AR-15 is not a weapon of war. It's a semi-automatic weapon, just like the handgun I'm carrying right now.
Sure.
Just like a Remington that we hunt with. Automatic weapons are already illegal.
Right.
And so they don't exist. If they do, give me a call because we'll be happy to go out and arrest them.
Well, you have to have a special, even if you go get a special permit, you're going to be very regulated. Anybody that has that, it's not going to happen in California.
It's not that easy to get a permit to have an automatic weapon.
No.
Especially in today's world, it's become very difficult. But it irritates me to hear people talk about weapons of war or the AR-15 as being something that's bad. It's scary looking. That's the truth. It's scary looking. It shoots the same rounds as fast as my handgun shoots.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's when I look at that, and if I'm shooting my AR-15 or a 30-06, your hunting rifle, that 30-06 is a pretty good round.
It is.
That's you're going to do a little bit of damage with that one.
I grew up hunting with a 30-06.
Yeah, and to me, that's still my favorite rifle that I shoot. So, with that, like you said, having armed citizens. It absolutely should be the last resort when it comes to self-defense in a lot of ways.
Well, they talk about these weapons that we shouldn't have because of the mass shootings. We didn't have mass shootings 25 years ago. No. We had these weapons, so what's changed?
Yeah.
The way we're raising our children is what's changed. The way we're not holding people accountable for their actions have changed. We're trying to treat a symptom of the problem instead of the problem itself.
And not holding people accountable. That kind of leads into another subject in my thoughts, that Prop 47.
Absolutely.
Now, there's a lot of talk about it. And I think I like a lot of things. We all hear different things. You would probably know more about that than most. So if you could kind of help us understand what that really did. And because I know my thought when I used to own a grocery store for many years, and I stopped shoplifters nonstop. I could do it. I was in Lancaster. We all know Lancaster could be a little rough. And I prosecuted every chance. But now, from my understanding is, any of those people I stopped, they're not going to jail.
Well, it's a complex problem that started with realignment, but Prop 47, people don't understand it. A ballot initiative that goes on the ballot must have a certain number of signatures to get on there. Once it's on there, then the Attorney General of the state writes a title and summary for that ballot initiative. That's what voters read. This ballot is the title and summary. The title and summary for Prop 47, which it decriminalized almost everything, and drugs and petty thefts, with priors especially. The title and summary written by the Attorney General was called Safe Schools and Safe Neighborhoods.
Right.
It was anything but that. And the person that was the Attorney General and wrote that title and summary is now running for President of the United States. That should scare the hell out of everyone.
Yeah, that's what I really hope more people would realize. She was such a supporter of that.
She was. And it decriminalized drugs, and we're seeing the zombies on our streets now. People are not held in custody. Before realignment, there was 179 state prisoners, 179,000 state prisoners in our prisons throughout California. Today, there's 92,000.
Wow.
So where are those other 80,000 people at? I can tell you, drive downtown Bakersfield at midnight, and you'll have them cross in front of you on the street. That's where they're at. Not all homeless are criminals. Not all criminals are homeless.
Right.
But I can tell you this, a large percentage of these people have a mental health issue caused by drugs
Yeah.
or lack of being able to get their drugs.
Yeah, and I think that
It's a mental illness that they weren't born with.
right. That's the one I always struggle with. It's we're going to call it a mental illness, but it was a self-caused mental illness in a lot of ways for some folks.
They've
There's
made
some
poor
that are-
choices their entire life, and they're not going to stop making poor choices.
No.
When we had people in custody at Laredo, we had programs that were being very successful. Prop 47 yanked the rug right out from under us because now I don't have the staff, number one. I have 2 jails sitting empty because I don't have staff for it. So when you're arrested on these petty theft crimes, you're processed in and you're cited out. And you're addicted to drugs when you come in, you're still addicted to drugs when you go out, and we can expect the behavior to change. It's not.
It seems like it's done a lot more harm than good by far.
There's no question about it. These people, when we had the ability to keep them, before it was a bad thing to become a police officer, we had thousands of people applying. Now we're having to struggle to get people to apply for the job because who wants a job you get criticized everything that you do? And that's what a policeman goes through. And so Laredo Max Mead, 350 beds is sitting empty. Laredo Minimum, which is 800 beds and where we had all our programs, is sitting empty, will never be open again because it doesn't meet, it's so old that
Really?
the barracks are done.
I think that's something more you brought up about how your recruiting is hard. And I think more people need to realize that we definitely need more law enforcement officers out there and to be more understanding when one of your deputies shows up or when a BPD officer shows up, they're always coming on your worst day. And I think that folks really need to think about that when they show up and be a little more understanding.
Well,
and
the state of California
helpful.
made it easier to become a police officer because they passed a bill, and the governor signed it, that says a police officer can smoke marijuana off duty.
Oh,
So, and we can't even ask whether you used marijuana last night or in the last year. It was 1 year, no marijuana use, and we give them a polygraph. But in the infinite wisdom of our state legislature, they passed that bill. Now, there are 2 groups of people that are exempted from that can't do that. Truck drivers and trade unions. But police officers are not included in that. That's intentional.
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That is crazy. That's, and yeah, I was a hoodlum kid at one time and did things I probably shouldn't have done. And I see a lot of it, but it does surprise me. Every morning I go for a bike ride. And I was telling my wife just yesterday, I said, I'm amazed how many people start their day smoking marijuana because I can smell
Well,
it.
they never stop.
That's it. It's 6 o'clock in the morning.
I had a real
that.
personal friend. Merle Haggard was a really good friend
Was
of
he?
mine. And I never saw Merle without a cigarette lighter in his hand because he smoked marijuana 24/7. And he told me that he wasn't addicted to it. And I asked him, how often do you smoke marijuana? He said, every day. How many times a day? All day long. I said, can your ears hear what your mouth is saying? He goes, I understand what you're saying, but we were friends. I respected his lifestyle. That's your choice. I don't care if people choose to smoke marijuana. That's their personal decision. I'm not an advocate for it. I think that our youth are going to pay a huge price from the use of marijuana.
Yeah.
I think some people are going to have extreme health problems because of the carcinogens in the marijuana they're getting. They don't know what it is or where it's coming from, but I can guarantee you most of those carcinogens are coming out of Mexico because they're not legal in the United States for health reasons. So there's going to be a bill to pay.
Yeah, I think that's really coming. I think a lot of folks they don't see the long end of that one.
They don't.
So in that, like I said, we're seeing a lot more criminals out on the street. We know that. I see them daily driving around. I see them up and down the state.
We see them going to Target. Not a bad. Just go in and take what they want. And if it's less than $950, they're given a ticket.
And they could do that 5, 6, 7 times
Some
a
of
day,
them have
right?
30 or 40 promises to appear.
They're never going to show
They're
up.
not coming.
No.
Because we're not holding them accountable for their actions. Now, part of that's the problem with lack of staffing. It's not the DA's Association has an initiative on the ballot this year that changes some of Prop 47, but not all of it. The problem with Prop 47 was we voted on it.
Yeah.
And we passed it. The only way to overturn it is to vote on it and get it on the ballot. And it takes a lot of money to do that.
Well, and I think you said they're going to word it a certain way to where I've been amazed at how they word certain things to confuse everybody.
It's dishonest. It's disingenuous at best, but it's dishonest to the public.
Oh, it's dishonest. Yeah, you're being kind with the disingenuous. I think I think there's a plan in a lot of those. You vote no for yes and yes for no for a reason. And so when we talk about the crime rates, what is really happening? We're not able to arrest them.
Yeah,
so we know those rates are higher than they're telling us.
I was at an event yesterday, and we're talking about the crime rates and how they're down. The crime rate is down because people stopped reporting. Crime reporting is down.
Yeah.
People are tired of calling the cops and having nothing happen. People are tired of calling the cops and having somebody arrested and back out before the day's over with. People are tired of wasting their time doing that, so they stop reporting. And I understand that. But when you stop reporting, what happens to the crime rate? It goes down. I heard one of the radio stations yesterday bashing the city and the county because we're number 5 in DUIs. I can show you how to make this out of the top 10. We just stop arresting for DUIs.
Right.
And we won't be in the top 10.
Right.
It's a two-edged sword that you have to be cautious with. But this is really not reporting crimes. Crime is not down. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to drive in our streets and realize crime is not down.
Right. Well, you walk into Rite Aid right now, and you're probably not going to find what you're looking for.
You're not. I went to Rite Aid last week in Mount Shasta, and the shelves were empty.
Yeah, they're going to file bankruptcy if they haven't already. I think they have. And we're going to see all these Rite Aids go away. Yep. But you're going to see a lot of other brick and mortar buildings go away because
when they
of
go
what you
away,
said.
The prices go up.
Absolutely, they do. It's like I said, I worked retail most of my life, but owning a store and what theft does.
I get asked all the time about the upcoming election, and the answer is simple. If you're content and happy with where we're at, you should stay with the current administration.
Yeah, I think
if
Reagan.
You're not, you shouldn't.
Reagan put it best when he said, "Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Then you vote for me."
If you listen to the rhetoric, they're trying to convince us that we're better off than we were 4 years ago. For the life of me, I don't understand that, and I don't get that.
No, I struggle.
I'm not saying Donald Trump's the answer to all of our problems, because he's got his own problems.
Sure.
We all know that. But it's policies that you have to look at, not personalities.
Yes.
Policies is what drive our country, not personality.
Yeah, and I say that often. I said when he was running originally in 2016, and I was talking to a good liberal friend, and we talked about that, and I said, I don't know him enough.
Yeah.
But I know what he's saying and what the policies I think he's going to go, and he's definitely better than the alternative there.
His policies were working. The border was becoming more secure. We knew who was coming into our country. Mm-hmm. We're having people coming from our country. I tell this story and people are in disbelief. The number of illegals come across our border, 5% are Mexican nationals.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
95% are from China, Venezuela, Russia. Why are they all trying to get here? Not for a better life.
No.
Some are. Don't mistake what I'm saying. But having a flight from Beijing to Tijuana every day should speak volumes to us.
I don't think enough people realize that.
Yeah.
And and that's kind of why we're doing this. I hope more and more people will start to understand that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And see what's happening. Because there is that, to me, that's another reason why you want to have an armed population, quite honestly, because
you're your first line of defense.
Yeah, that's it.
Cops
you guys are
aren't going to
busy.
be there when it happens. They're just not going to be there when it happens.
No.
When it's 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody kicks in your front door, and you call 911. There may not be a cop there for 10 minutes. It's too late. It's over with. You have to be able to protect yourself and your family.
Yeah, that's exactly what we put out there.
I get asked all the time the definition of the Second Amendment, and I tell people it really doesn't matter what I think the definition of the Second Amendment is, nor does it matter what you think the Second Amendment definition is. Like it or dislike it, the Supreme Court defines what is legal and what isn't, and we have to abide by that. And right now we have a conservative court that sees the world of Second Amendment as most of the right wings do. And thank God for that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's another reason going into this election. We know what'll happen. I mean, this whole stacking of the court. I don't think folks realize exactly how important that Supreme Court can be. And if they go and add in another 7 justices, what's going to happen?
Well, you hear the argument that when our founding fathers wrote the Second Amendment, they didn't include assault rifles, whatever an assault rifle is.
Right.
We don't know. But they didn't include those. They didn't mean those. Well, I want to tell you that when they wrote the First Amendment, they didn't. What we're doing right now, they didn't see that either, because it didn't exist
Great point.
And so should we do away with this because that's not what they meant? No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I've never looked at it that way. That's a great point. That's and actually I love history. I should have studied it more, but we always hear about how our elections are just brutal and mean and this and that. Go look at some of the elections from back then and some of the articles that were written in the newspapers back then. They were much harsher on each other.
Well, and
even.
if you read the Second Amendment, and I encourage everyone to read all the amendments,
Right,
and
absolutely.
be well versed. The Second Amendment is as if it was written for today. It talks about a tyrannical government.
Yes.
I mean, it's as if it was written today because it doesn't matter whether it's far right or far left. There's tyranny on the horizon if we're not really, really cautious.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. It's and there's a reason that we've never really been invaded, but the more we're with as many
We're
arms,
being invaded right now.
But we are now, exactly, and they're doing this, and we're letting them.
I was in Israel 10, 11 years ago with a bunch of FBI agents and sheriffs, and an Israeli general told me, "You're going to be eaten from the inside, not from bombs being dropped on you. What makes your democracy, what makes you so good, also makes you very vulnerable, and you're going to see that happen." And I'm watching it unfold.
I would imagine. Yeah, it's you better than most because you're seeing it. Was it Paul Harvey? How to he had a little speech and he read about how to destroy America. People, I would recommend go and listen to that if people haven't. That was another. And then there was the fellow from, and I should know his name, but I don't. He was from Russia, and he talked about how you take over the United States. And realistically, it's from that. You do it from the inside out.
It is, and if you listen to the argument of illegal or immigration, they call it, because they won't use the word illegal immigration. It's all good, honest people looking for a better life, farm workers, and that's 5%.
Yeah, that's small.
But you won't hear them break that down because it doesn't meet the narrative that they need to sell to the people that, in my opinion, are not paying attention.
I think
I'm being nice again when I say that.
Yeah, I know you are. and I wish more and more people would pay attention. And we're starting to see that, I think, sometimes. But then in the next breath, I'll run across folks that, and I'll call it the youth, are not, some of them just really are not looking at it. Or I don't want to have to look at that right now.
Well, if you ask the sheriffs across this great country and ask them which candidate is pro-law enforcement, you'll get very, very few that will talk about Kamala Harris being pro-law enforcement.
Right.
Donald Trump, as good as bad as he wanted to be, loved law enforcement. And we need support for law enforcement right now more than we ever have because it's hard to recruit, and we're recruiting younger, not necessarily. We're recruiting a generation that doesn't know how to drive a car or shoot a gun. That's frightening, but it's true. We wreck a car every day because these youngsters don't know how to drive. Why? Because they grew up Uber Eats. They don't need to drive.
Right. Yeah, I'm surprised at how many young people just have no interest in getting a driver's license.
Well, and that's what we're hiring. We went to we were having a failure rate in our academy, which is over 6 months long. The last couple of weeks is when you do the firearms training, and we were losing 5 or 6 during that session because they couldn't shoot. So we went to the red dot sites.
Okay.
And we've had 0 failures since. So it's not nearly as intimidating. They start building their confidence. But these are people that have never handled a gun in their life.
And there they are.
And we tell them, we have a pre-academy. Go to Second Amendment Sports. Go out to Five Dogs. Find yourself a trainer. There's plenty of them around. Learn how to handle a gun. Learn how to disassemble a gun. Learn what the laws are. We're going to teach you, but have a basic knowledge when you get there.
Yeah, we actually had Naomi Moss on a while back, one of the instructors here in town. She's great. She actually
there's some good ones.
Yeah, I'm talking with the Powers right now. Looking forward to getting them on.
Yeah,
and they've just done some great stuff.
Craig and Becky have been around for forever, and my wife goes to them when she gets her CCW. Having a female is beneficial for other females because it's different. Gripping the gun the gun you have can make a big difference on whether you're going to be capable of doing it or not. If you stick a .45 revolver in the hands of a female, she's probably not going to do that successful. Right. Or a frail man, for that matter.
Yeah. Oh no! Naomi actually instructed me to buy a different handgun.
Yeah.
Because what I was shooting with is just too small for my hand.
Get one that you can handle and that you're familiar with. Our CCWs, you can have 10 guns on there. For the life of me, I don't know why you need to have 10. Right. Pick your gun. Pick your gun that you're most comfortable with, that you're most proficient with, and that's the gun I want you to carry.
And with that, actually, the 10-gun thing, that brings up a little question. There was a change with this. It was at SB2, I think. You cannot have your spouse's gun on your
Correct.
license. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that, so like, I always put my wife's on.
That just increased gun sales, is what I tell you.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Although you got to pay an additional 11%.
Oh gosh, yes.
Which is criminal.
All that did is really hurt the lower income.
Absolutely. The person that doesn't have a lot of money can't afford to buy a gun.
No.
And that's really, really sad, because it's a right to be able to do that. And you're taxing that right. And then you're taxing on top of that tax. And shame on this governor for signing that bill.
Well, I think he had full intention on that, was just to make it harder.
It's about gun control.
Yeah, let me make it harder. I can't
But let's
take it
be
away.
honest, with 3D printing, you're never going to control guns. We can make our own guns.
Oh, yeah.
So gun control is gone. It's like marijuana use. It's out of the barn. You're not going to bring it back.
Yeah.
And so let's move on.
Well, and that's, I grew up with roughly, she was a single mom with 6 kids. There's no way she could have bought firearms. But also, when I look at these, these folks that they cannot go out and shoot and practice as often if we keep adding all these extra taxes on top.
And including the ammo.
Yeah, the ammo, 11% on top of the ammo. How are you going to go practice?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
That one offended me. That whole thing offends me a lot. But I think about
the
that.
intent behind it is what offends
It's bad.
me. Is to minimize your ability to protect yourself.
Yeah, all you do is hurting people with that one. And it will take the folks that are, well, it's just too much work, I'm not going to do it.
Well, if you want your dying thought to be, I wish I would have had a gun, get yourself a gun, get training, get proficient with it. If you're not comfortable with a CCW, keep it in your house. Be ready to protect yourself and your family, because you are your first line of defense.
Yeah, and there's a lot of less lethal options, and we're actually going to have some people coming on in the near future about that. So, but yeah, it's and get out and practice.
I'm a strong recommender of don't take a less lethal weapon to a gunfight.
Right.
Be careful what you do, because when you pull out the less lethal, your hands are full.
Yep.
And if you're met with a firearm, your hands are still full.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying pull a gun on everyone,
No.
but I am saying be cautious with what's occurring.
No.
When you decide what you're going to do. They're less lethal are really valuable tools.
Yeah.
In the right environment.
In the right environment, yes. That's a fellow was telling me the other day, and it was actually, he says, I just don't go to places where I know I might have to use my gun.
Yeah, where is that?
Yeah, I haven't figured that one out yet, but because now it's everywhere.
If you remember during the pandemic, the governor stopped us from carrying our guns in church.
Oh, yes.
Even though we had church mass shootings.
Yes. Yeah.
And,
made no sense.
I got called and asked if I was going to enforce that. And I said, listen, I'm going fishing on Sunday, so I probably won't see you in church. Do what you got to do.
Right. Yes. That's, my son did a video years ago. You brought up about the mass shootings and using an AR-15 or using a handgun, and timed it of having to reload.
You're more proficient in a smaller environment with a handgun than you are an AR-15.
It was exactly. It was more accurate and actually less
reloading
time.
is quicker. There's
the whole thing.
I'm not. We shouldn't be saying one's better than for mass shooting. People that are mass shooters are going to find a way to do what they have to do because they have a severe mental illness.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Anybody that's going to do that, I do hate the misrepresentation. I had one of my coworkers the other day talking about firearms, and he used the term automatic weapons. Yeah. I said, nobody carries automatic weapons.
Correct.
And he goes, well, I mean semi-automatic.
And then they go to the assault rifle and ask, well, what is an assault rifle?
Well, and I had that exact conversation with them.
It's something that looks scary. That's an assault rifle.
That's what I told him. I said, so are you more afraid of an AR-15 or of me shooting that 30-06? Do you know what they look like? Yeah. If you go look at the hole that one makes, or go look at the hole that one makes. Go tell me. But the misrepresentation in the news media so often, they call them automatic.
Well, because it meets the narrative.
Yeah, it's scary.
But it's misleading people completely.
Yeah, and I don't know. We're never going to be able to fix that. I don't think.
No, because you have a group of people that want all guns confiscated.
And that will never happen.
Never going to happen.
And the 3D printing, that's a great point. I never really thought about that.
They make their own guns. And that's new technology that's going to grow.
Yeah, that's just starting. What's it going to look like in years?
I'm not an advocate of having a gun that doesn't have a serial number because in law enforcement that obviously is beneficial. The ballistics are beneficial for solving crimes. But what I am saying is it's out there.
Yeah.
And you can't stop it.
And you can make that out of a synthetic material.
You can.
So yeah, we need to be aware of that a lot. So now you've done this for a long time. If you're looking at 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, how do we get more law enforcement officers in? What do we?
I think we've turned the corner.
Have we?
To be honest with you, we went 10 years without getting a lateral transfer in. That means from another agency,
right?
Because what would we have to offer? Low pay and live in Kern County with bad air.
Yeah,
that's what we had to offer. We gave them a substantial pay raise. We pay a signing bonus, and if you're willing to live in certain substations like Fraser Park, Mojave, Boron, Kern River Valley, Ridgecrest, we pay you $2,000 extra a month.
Oh wow!
If you live and work there, that's pays your house payment. So we've had some real successes with the recruitment. And for the first time, and we have had 20 or 30 laterals, but for the first year in probably 10 years, we're in the positive numbers, not the negative. Because if you hire 10 deputies and you lose 15 to retirement before you put the 10 on the street, you're down 5. And that's what we were doing every year. And this last year, we were in the black. We gained more than we're losing. We increased deputies in the outlying areas. We brought our gang unit back that we lost. We brought our narcotic unit back, and they're just knocking them dead. With the Real Crime Task Force, who's killing the criminals out there, doing a great job. We have all these units that are really doing wonderful work. We still haven't had our SRO, school resource officers. We still don't have those back yet, but we're headed in the right direction.
No, that's awesome to hear, because that's been a concern for a long time.
Very much so.
And I think those SROs are extremely important.
Well, they are the mentors of our kids, and it's a positive mentor. So when they leave high school or grammar or junior high, they don't think cops are bad.
Yeah.
Because they know somebody. They know them personally. I get people all the time, I'm their friend. I don't know who they are, but they know who I am, and I'm their friend because we've talked one time. I'm okay with that. If it has a positive impact and influence, that's our role, and that's part of what we should be doing.
Yeah, I was on a school board for some years, and
I'm sorry, but school boards are important.
They extremely important.
Probably the most important elected job that we have in our county is on the school board, because they're going to establish the criteria and what our students are going to learn.
Oh, very much so. And I know I was attacked mercilessly because I am very conservative, and the unions actually came after me pretty hard and got me off the board. And that was their plan.
Yeah.
And all I cared about was the kids. But I did watch the school resource officer there, and his interaction with the kids, and that was in Oildale. And they needed it there.
Well, and I think people don't understand that because I'm a conservative doesn't mean that I'm right on everything.
No.
It just means those are my core beliefs. Because you're liberal and believe other things doesn't make you right. Somewhere in the middle is where most of us live in society.
Yeah.
In today's world, there is no middle. It's far left or far right.
Yeah, that's what's getting highlighted more and more. I wish if people really would take a look at it and see that they are really more in the middle. I mean, I'm considered a right wing, but
there
really,
are things that you're in the middle on.
Absolutely are.
You just that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I think some people might even call me left on some things. I would be a little insulted by that.
I would never call you that. Good. We can't use foul language on this.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's but it's interesting. It is a core belief because I haven't changed since I originally registered to vote when I was 18.
Were you born and raised here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was born in Fresno, and then we moved a lot.
It's the same.
Yeah.
My parents were conservative, and I learned from them. My dad was in the military. My son was in the military. It's what we do. Yeah. And I'm not ashamed to be a conservative, but I'm willing to admit that there are some things I may not be absolutely right on.
Oh, sure. Both my parents were Democrats, but they were Kennedy Democrats.
You can't divorce your parents either.
You can't.
You're just stuck with it.
No, and it was actually, I remember my mom, she had 6 kids, and they were all registered Republican. And here she was, a registered Democrat. She said, but she realized she agreed with us more than she agreed with the party.
Yeah. Well, the parties are not what they used to be.
Oh gosh, no, not at all. Not at all. I look what they're doing to Bobby Kennedy Jr. right now,
or to Lisa Gabbard. I mean,
yes,
they're horrible people now because their beliefs don't match up with the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
Well, they're both independents, so all their beliefs don't match up with the Republican Party either.
No, not at all. That Tulsi, she's interesting. That's I would not be shocked if, hopefully, Trump does get elected. We'll see both of those folks.
I know
in
for
there.
sure she's going to be somewhere because she's a smart lady.
Yes, she is.
You know, a lot of people wanted her and they wanted RFK as a vice president. You can't risk that flip-flop because they're one step away from the White House. And we now know that there are people out there who will kill the presidential candidate to keep them from becoming president.
Oh, yeah.
We know
exactly.
that. And so I respected the decision not to pick either one of them as a running mate.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
If they're a cabinet member, they can be fired.
Yeah, and I know we end up in a little more political discussion than we probably planned on there. So, but that's.
I always give talks and talk about I'm not going to be political, but you can't help but wind up there. Because what you talk about is political.
Yeah, well, and I think I always hear folks say it doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
It all affects you. Yeah. It all affects you. So going forward with the Second Amendment, with CCWs, are there other training classes? There was a sheriff in Florida who he made some comments which I supported.
Great judge.
Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine.
Is he?
Oh, yeah.
I loved what he said, but they do some training classes on their own through the Sheriff's Department. When you get fully staffed down the road, is that something that you think that Kern County can do?
Florida is a little bit different than California. We were held liable for everything that we do, unlike the rest of the state. So if you train somebody and they go out and do something bad, the liability is going to go to the deep pockets because the guy that goes out and does something bad has no money.
Yes.
So you can't sue them. And that's why you can have a citizen do the same thing a police officer does. They won't sue the citizen because there's no money.
Right.
It's the deep pockets.
Okay. And I wondered about that. So that makes sense. I like him. I like what he had to say. He's like, we're not going to get there in time, just like you said.
You saw the bullying that occurred yesterday with the 3 kids and 2 kids made a lick at one of them.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There's an attorney on the radio today saying there's probably going to be a lawsuit against the parents. Well, and the school. He didn't say that, but and the school district.
Yes.
Because if you can get them in, you now have deep pockets. And it's the attorney lawsuit, frivolous lawsuits are outrageous. If I mistrain someone, it's our fault. But if I have a deputy who goes rogue and does something extremely stupid and criminal, the county taxpayer shouldn't be held accountable. He should be. And if we could get there, you wouldn't have all these lawsuits because he has no money.
Right. So that's not going to happen. Yeah, exactly. That's, we went through that, like I said, in the grocery business. I got sued all the time. Yeah. It was nonstop frivolous lawsuits, I think, destroy the country, but especially the state. They do a lot of damage here. So one question that I did have, and I didn't include it in what I was thinking originally, but I've kind of evolved a little on somebody who's been convicted of a felony and they've served their time, they've been on parole, they finished their parole. Is there a certain point where they could reinstate their Second Amendment rights?
No, and that's really problematic. I have a friend who 50 years ago, he sold some mini bennies and some marijuana. It was a felony, and he went to jail and did time. But he's been a business owner and he's a musician. He's a very, very good guy who can't have a firearm. And there's nothing I can do because of that felony record. I've encouraged him to try and get it expunged because he should be able to do that. There should be, we have probationary periods, and I'm for that, and parole periods. But there should also be a time frame for certain crimes. If you go, hypothetically, I'm pulling a number out of there, 10 years without an arrest, there should be a benefit for that because you've obviously started to learn from your mistakes. 50 years, the chances of this person reoffending are slim and none. And so that's part of the missing element that I really encourage these people to contact an attorney and see if they can get their crime expunged. If it's a marijuana case and nothing else involved, that's easy.
Right.
It's the others that are difficult.
Yeah, and that one, I've never really thought much about it until we started talking to more and more folks, and that was just, like I said, I've started to.
Well, if you remember, Merle Haggard had a full pardon from Ronald Reagan, but the pardon didn't allow him to possess firearms because it had to say specifically in the pardon that you can possess firearms.
Oh.
So Merle called me and asked me if I could help him get a pardon from Arnold Schwarzenegger that would include the ability to hold guns, to have guns. And so when I talked with Arnold about it, He made me make a promise that I wouldn't go public with it till he was out of office. Signed the pardon, and I gave it to Merle. Merle could possess guns.
Okay.
That was really one of the highlights of our friendship, is because it had been 50 years since he'd been arrested.
Yeah, that's at some point you got to give him back the right to.
He called me trying to get
himself.
into Canada, because but his record, they let everybody else in the tour bus, but not him, because he had a 50-year-old criminal history.
Oh, good gosh!
And so he put me on the phone with a young lady from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police who was not impressed with me being a sheriff. They don't have sheriffs in Canada. Not at all impressed. But at the end of the day, I was able to fax up the full pardon from Schwarzenegger, because I have a copy of it.
Oh, good.
And faxed it up to him, and they let him in. So we talked about forks in the road leading you to no return.
Sure.
That's one of those, and it's not always as it should be.
Yeah, where he lived in Oildale.
Yeah.
A couple different places. The boxcar works. Yeah. He actually used to live. His house is 2 doors down from me, where I live now, and it was a 2-story, the only 2-story there.
Yeah.
And upstairs, you've probably been to it.
I have.
At Highmore.
Yeah.
You got that party room upstairs. It was for sale a few years back. We looked at it just for the fun of it.
Well, he always regretted selling the house at the river that he built.
Yes.
He said, I really regret selling that house because it was unique. But he had a nice ranch, 250-some acres up in Palo Cedro. Very beautiful property, but the house was not anything fancy like you would expect.
Right.
He had a tour bus that was a multi-million-dollar tour bus that didn't even have a shower in it.
Oh, wow.
It was for a band traveling.
Yes.
So he was a very humble and soft-spoken man at the end of the day.
He was actually, I was on Standard School Board. He was actually expelled from Standard junior high before he graduated.
Yeah.
And there was a push to try and get him back down to get his diploma.
Yeah.
And granted his diploma. He didn't come back, unfortunately. It was a long time later on, but that was...
he was a very unique individual that he had stage fright his entire life.
Yeah.
I was with him at the Golden Nugget when he didn't think he could go on because he had stomach problems and he needed some medicine and blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
I talked him into going on. When he came off, I said, "Are you all right?" And he said, "What are you talking about?" The stage fright, once he got up there, was fine.
It was over.
The anticipation of doing it in front of a crowd never went away.
I'll be tired. Well, I'm curious that you brought him up. The old song, I'll Never Swim Kern River Again. Was that truly about his horse?
Well, I never asked him specifically if it was. I've heard the rumors.
Yeah.
But I know there's no history of his wife or girlfriend drowning.
Exactly.
So I suspect there's some truth to that story, but it was something I never. I was very cautious about interfering with his personal life. He invited me to his house whenever I wanted to go there. We'd sit out on the porch and talk, and I was very respectful of his lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's his house. I asked him not to do things while I'm there that might get us both in trouble.
Yeah.
But I was very respectful of who he was and where he was, and I never asked him for anything. I always took him something, which is something he said nobody ever does that.
No, that's interesting. So now you've been in law enforcement for 48 years. When are you up for re-election?
Well, that's an interesting story because the governor changed. First of all, he changed our cycle this time to 2 years.
Oh,
but we were already elected, and he wanted the sheriffs to run during the presidential cycle when who more votes? Democrats.
Wow.
And he openly said it because trying to elect more progressive sheriffs. And the Sheriff's Association said, no, we've been elected for 4 years. You can't do that. So he made it 6 years, which I went, whoa, I didn't sign up for 6 years. I signed up for 4. So actually there's 3.5 more years left in this term.
Okay.
Or 4.5.
Oh.
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so, if you're going to do it that way.
I think 28.
So 28.
Next election.
So he got what he wanted in the long run.
He did, but I don't think he understands sheriffs. Sheriffs are loved by their community.
Yes.
Or they're hated. And if they're hated, they're not there very long.
Right.
But the sheriff's a special elected official for the community. Mm-hmm. They rely on the sheriff to be open and honest with them. They rely on the sheriff to say whatever the sheriff believes because nobody can do anything about it.
Yeah.
It can't be fired except by them. And I think he missed that I don't care if it's Democrats or Republicans, a popular sheriff's going to be reelected. An unpopular sheriff is not.
Right. Well, I had mentioned to a few people you were coming on, and to the man and woman, they all said, well, he just needs to stay there as long as he's willing
Yeah,
to. We want him there.
I don't want to die in office. You know?
Yeah. Well,
although you have to be somewhere to die.
you got to be somewhere. Why
yeah,
not? Yeah. Well, as long as you're going to get past the 50 mark in service, I think that's an impressive feat in itself.
You know, at my age and my experience, and as long as I've been there, every day is a new day. Yeah. And I got up this morning ready to go to work. And as long as that is happening, I'll be good. Health drives everything. Yeah. And so we'll see how long this goes. Well, but I still enjoy going to work every day.
We're glad you're in there.
And if I do leave, I'll have somebody that thinks like me to replace me.
God, I hope so. That's, like I said, I see our community changing a lot, but you've definitely adapted a lot to it. And like I said, anybody that I spoke to about you coming on was just big supporters.
Well, and I appreciate that. You know, that's what drives an elected official to knowing that the public thinks they're doing the right thing, a good job. They're not feeding them lines of crap to be reelected. Because I'm at a stage, even the last couple elections, where if I didn't get reelected, my life wasn't going to be over. It wasn't going. I'm okay. I'm still going to be honest and truthful for what I believe and what I do.
Yeah.
And the public then decides if that's what they want or not.
And I like that it's like you stated, it's a local decision. That is our same thing like with the school board you brought up. I wish more and more people need to get involved with these school boards. I see folks complain about this has happened, that has happened.
I saw yesterday a school board didn't have anybody run out in Arbor, Lamont, or someplace. Yeah. And a city councilman in McFarland retired, and nobody filed to run that.
Why would you?
Yeah.
Why would you?
It's a great question.
You get abused. Like I said, I was on there for 7 years, and it would surprise people what really happens in those meetings.
Yes.
And there was the superintendent at the time was very good because I'm not a school guy. You know, I was in business. I got on there because my grandfather-in-law had been on that school board for 43 years. Prior to that, the boardroom's named after him, actually, Frank Boardman. It's Standard. And we felt it was a little bit of a legacy to go run, and a couple of people had asked. Well, once you get on, you just get attacked.
Yeah.
Like you get attacked. Yeah. And it's you're volunteering your time.
Yeah.
That's all you're doing.
Yeah. It's easy to walk away from that.
It was.
If you're a brand new elected official on a school board, you're not used to being abused. As an elected sheriff, I have pretty thick skin.
Yeah.
You can say what you want. You have your right to your opinion. In fact, I respect your right to say it.
Sure.
We may not disagree, and if you can't agree to disagree with me, that's your problem, not my problem.
Yeah, that's like I said. More and more people need to get involved. I just really. I couldn't stress that enough. Go to your school board meetings, run for your school board, but also
know what your child's learning. Know what your curriculum is.
Yeah, and I guarantee it's not always the teacher's fault that your kid acted up in school. You might want to take. I have both my daughters were teachers. They both have stopped teaching now. Breaks my heart a little bit.
It's the toughest gig around is being a school teacher because you can be abused and no one's going to come to your defense.
No, I watched my oldest daughter when she was 9 months pregnant, getting ready, last day before she left, and she was teaching at a high school. And the kids just brutal, the language and stuff they use against them, they get sent to the office, they come right back.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it either.
The toughest, other than the state prison guard, those are the two toughest occupations that I believe exist.
Yeah, I work with a lot of the FFA teachers and ag teachers around the county and up and down the state, and they do God's work.
Yes, they do.
And when you see them at the fair this year, guys, go up, tell them thanks for their service too.
Know what your student's learning and then thank your teacher for it.
Yes.
Or confront your teacher and say, I don't want my student doing that.
Exactly.
And go to the school boards and be a voice, because if you're not, you're going to get what you get.
Yeah, if you're not paying attention. Yeah, exactly. Well, that is great. I really appreciate you coming today. I know you've got a lot going on.
It's my pleasure.
Is there anything else that I didn't bring up that you would like to bring up?
You know, I think we live in the third largest county in California. We have the greatest citizens in our county. I go to sheriff's meetings all the time. Our community supports law enforcement more than any other community in the state of California. They're very respectful. We have our haters, and they're gonna, no matter what, they're gonna hate you. That's okay. But by and large, we're very fortunate to live in this county and have the support that we have for law enforcement, because it's really overwhelming. Even the Democrats in this county respect their law enforcement. Not all of them. Not all Republicans do as well. But comparing to other counties, we're very fortunate to live here.
I've always said this is growing up. This is one of the people here are nicer. And I think it really does stem from the origins of this county. When you look at the grapes of wrath, what are you going to call it? Everyone came, and anybody who's been here for a long time, they have family from either Oklahoma, Arkansas, or Texas.
The technology has changed our environment. And when I get hate mail, and I get a lot of it, depending on what occurs, I do a little research. Almost 90% of them or more are not from our county.
Right.
They're from the East Coast, and somebody told them they saw it on social media, and so they want their 2 cents worth. It's not the people from our county. No. They understand that we're not perfect.
Right.
We make mistakes, but we hold our people accountable.
You actually got a really nice mention. I don't know. You might know this. I don't know. Listen to a podcast. You know who Pat McAfee is?
I saw
Did
it.
you hear about that?
I did. I saw it.
It was
hysterical.
That was. It was because and then COVID. You guys went through a heck of a time during COVID, and you handled that.
Well, then the other night when the RNC had their convention, I didn't realize that the president was going to show a picture of me shaking his hand in uniform. And we were sitting there, and I told her, back that up. And so she backed it up, and I said, you might as well go get my phone because my phone's getting ready to blow up.
Absolutely.
And it did.
Well, I thought that was great. I don't know who that gentleman was that called in the McAfee show.
Yeah, that was hysterical.
That was great. And your mustache is famous now. That was... and he goes, how could you not have a sheriff named Youngblood?
He couldn't script it any better than he portrayed it because he believed that it was a fake name.
Right.
He really did.
And if people haven't heard that, it was awesome. I got such a kick out of that. And like I said, the way you guys handled COVID, I was very impressed. That was a tough time for everybody.
And we may see it again.
It's almost election year. It's almost election time.
I just got over COVID 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we had it about a month.
It wasn't bad.
No. I've had it, I think, 3 times.
Me too.
And if you're from this area, you know what it's like when they shake the almond trees.
It's just God telling me to take a week off.
Exactly. Yeah, Cargill tells me to take a week off when I do it. So, well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming today. And please, you've got my number. Anytime we could help out, if there's anything you ever want us to talk about, promote, we are more than happy to.
Anytime you're giving the public information, you're a valuable asset because that's what they need is information.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not always correct. I'm not always right. There's 2 sides to every story, and they have to make their own decision where they're at in life.
Yeah.
I can't make it for them, nor can the other side.
No, you just take the information and decide from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.